Hello students, I welcome you all to this English class. Today we are going to start a grammar class for you. You know, grammar is the soul of English language. Any language falls flat without grammar. So, grammar is very important, it is the backbone of any language. Without grammar we can't read or write any language, nor can we understand anything at all. Therefore, English grammar for English language is very essential, without which we can't go in our texts for reading and writing. However, I would like to tell you that there are a lot of things to be done in grammar, but we are to deal with certain grammatical ideas that are meant for you in your syllabi prescribed by the CHSE Odisha Bhubaneswar. So, I would like to start the passive which is there for you in your syllabus. You know that the passive is a sentence construction which is important in both speaking and writing. We can speak sentences in two different ways, or we can write sentences in different ways. We can speak it either in an active form or in its passive form. And when we go to the active sentences, the sentences have to be spoken as it is, but when we transform it into the passive counterpart, we have to take care, and there are certain rules and regulations that have to be obeyed for passivization. So, now look at the sentence that I am going to tell you. The first one is, the man makes beautiful kites, and when you transform such a sentence into English passive, this sentence is in active form, and look at the sentence that I write here. This man makes kites, and when we transform the sentence into its passive form, it becomes you see, this man makes kites, this is in its active form, and kites are made by this man, this is in its passive form. Actually, in the true sense of the term, when we are going to construct such sentences, the first one is in active form and the second was in a passive form, and only the sentential differences are there. Only the sentential differences are there, and when we talk about the sentential differences, the differences in the formation of sentences, one is in the active form and the other is in the passive form. And however, when we are going to do the passivization of such sentences, active sentences into passive, we have to abide by certain rules and regulations. And you see, now study the sentences again. The sentence has three parts. This is one part, this is another part, and this is also another part. There are three major parts here, and the first part happens to be the subject. This is the first part, I say, not first word in the sentence. This is part 1, first part, and the sentence, the first part of the sentence is subject, and the second part is verb, and the third part is object. And we actually need these three important elements for passivization. And when we transform such sentences into passive, these three parts are required: subject, verb and object. S stands for subject, V stands for verb, and O stands for object. What is the subject? You see, subject is the doer or the performer of the action. When an action takes place in the subject in the sentence, and in the action, who does the action? The subject does the action. The subject is the doer of the action, the performer of the action. So, the subject is the performer of an action. Therefore, it is the doer or performer of the action. This is part 1, or it is also called the agent of the sentence. Agent means the agent always does something, it performs the action. Therefore, it is called the doer or performer of the action, the subject. And now, see the verb. What does the verb indicate in the sentence? Here the first sentence, this man makes kites. Here the verb is makes, and it indicates the action. What is the action? Making something, doing something, making kites, and here making is the action, is the some action that is performed by the subject of the sentence. So, what kind of a verb is required for passivization? That is another important question. We have different kinds of verbs, you see. We have different kinds of verbs, but what kind of a verb is required for transformation of an active sentence into its passive form? It needs a verb that is called transitive verb. You see, what is a transitive verb then? What is a transitive verb? What is a transitive verb? Transitive verb. So, we have transitive verb, intransitive verb. Transitive verb means the verb which carries an object. If a verb carries an object, the verb is transitive. If the verb does not carry an object, it is called intransitive verb. Actually, we need a transitive verb for transforming an active sentence into its passive form. Therefore, we need a transitive verb, means the verb that carries an object, and in the sentence this man makes kites, and here you see this man is the subject, makes is the verb, and kites is the object, and here there is an object after the verb makes. Therefore, the verb is here, the verb is called transitive verb, means it carries an object, and here the object is makes. This verb is a transitive verb because it carries an object with it. Dear students, why do we need a transitive verb? What is the necessity of a transitive verb? What is the use of an object? What is the necessity of an object? Why do we need it? The thing is that when you transform an active sentence into its passive form, there is a change in the structure, there is a change in the construction pattern of the sentence, because the subject becomes the object of the sentence, or you can say the object becomes the subject of the sentence. When the object becomes the subject of the sentence, and if the sentence does not have any object, how can we get how can you make it the subject of the sentence if there is no object in the sentence? If the sentence is intransitive one, how can you make the how can change the object, how can you shift the object to the place of subject, because there is no object, and therefore, certain sentences cannot be made passive. Now, I am going to tell you the kind of sentences that we cannot make passive. They are like this. I am now writing two sentences here. They sleep here, she runs faster, and you see here sleep is a verb and here runs is also a verb. And let us see whether they are transitive or intransitive. These verbs are called intransitive verbs because they do not carry any object. This is the subject of the sentence, this is the verb of the sentence, and here it is an adverb, here it is the adverb of a place, it is not an object. Therefore, it is only S, V, and here it is the adverbial, and here she is the subject of the sentence, runs is the verb, and faster again it is the adverbial, and therefore, this verb is not a transitive verb, this verb is not a transitive verb, both the verbs are intransitive in nature because they do not carry any object. When a verb does not carry any object, we call it intransitive. So, we actually do not need any intransitive construction, we do not need any intransitive verb for making the sentence passive, we need a transitive verb, and this kind of verb is very important. Transitive verb is very important for making the sentence passive. The next thing is very important, again these are the criteria, these are the salient features that which are required for transformation of sentences. So, for transforming such sentences, these things are very important which we should see. And now, let us see what I would like to tell you now, the tense of the verb. The tense of the verb is very important also, and here you see in this sentence sleep and runs, these verbs also carry tense because a tense is a verb must carry tense. So, a tense is very important. Here the verb I am going to the sentence that I am going to say, this man makes beautiful, here makes, this man makes beautiful kites, and here makes is the verb that carries tense because a verb must carry a tense. A verb, because we can't make a sentence without a verb, and we can't make a sentence without the tense of a verb. There must be the tense in a verb. A single verb may be there or a compound verb form may be there, but the verb must carry tense, and here makes is the present tense form of the verb. And when we transform such sentences, it needs the application of a tense rule, it needs application of tense rule. So, it is when we make it passive, the form is object first, then be present plus V3 plus by agent. So, when we make it passive, the man makes beautiful kites, and now you see when we make it passive, in object is placed here, kites. Then be present, be forms are is, am, are, was, were, sorry, is, am, are, they are the present tense forms of be. So, when kites is a plural, it is are, is not applicable, am is not applicable. So, are is applicable. So, kites are, then third form of the verb make, made, made, third form of the verb, then by, then agent, agent is the this man is the agent. kites are made by this man, and this sentence is the passive form. And application of a tense rule is very important, which we will consider hereafter. And this is the present tense form of the verb, present simple form of the verb, which when it is transformed into English passive, it is done like this. Active sentences and passive sentences are used in English language, not only in English language, it is used in all the languages of the world. We use it in Sanskrit, we use it in Hindi, we use it in other languages of the world also. So, this is very important for us, as it is found almost in all the languages. So, tense of the verb is very important for passivization of sentences. We actually require the tense rule. So, which verb actually carries tense? When you go, because a sentence may have one verb, a sentence may have more than one verb. So, when a sentence has one verb, all right, that carries tense, and that is called that is the only verb, that is called the main verb, and that carries tense. But when we have a compound verb form, which verb carries tense, that has to be taken care of. So, if a sentence has one verb, this is the verb that carries tense, and here we have the sentence and here this is the verb makes. And let us now take the sentence how many verbs are here? Here we have two verbs, here we have one verb, and here we have two verbs. This is a single verb, and this is called a compound verb form, because when we have more than one verb, we call it a compound verb form. The man has made kites, also two verbs, has and made, compound verb form. The man has been making kites, has been making, three verbs. This is called a compound verb form, because the sentence carries more than one verb, and therefore, here the man makes kites, this carries tense, makes, this man is making kites, and here is making kites is the verb, and these two, between these two verbs, the first verb carries tense. This is the principle of grammar. The first verb always carries tense. Here this verb is finite verb, here this verb is finite verb, here it is main verb, here it is main verb. Here main verb is finite, but here main verb is non finite, but here the auxiliary verb is finite. So, this is the this verb carries tense, this verb is finite, this is main verb, this, and here this is main verb, this is non finite verb, and here is the auxiliary verb is called finite verb, and this verb carries tense. So, verb is very important for transformation of sentences into its passive form. Okay. We also need another element, you see, subject, we need subject, and the next is object, verb, and now the third element, third important element for passivization is the object of the sentence. And now, see, come to the object of the sentence here, and if we take the first sentence, this man makes beautiful kites, this man makes kites or beautiful kites. And here which is the object? Here this is the object of the sentence. This is the object of the sentence, and if we mark the sentence here, this is the subject of the sentence, this is the verb of the sentence, and that is the object of the sentence. So, what is required for passivization then? We require three important elements for making a sentence passive. What are these things? One is subject is required, verb is required, and object is required. So, we need three important elements for passive. This is what we call SVO form. So, a sentence should be in its SVO form, and how to know that a sentence has object and how it is how to recognize a particular part of a sentence, whether it is object or anything else. So, how to know object in the sentence, how to recognize it, that is important. And here you see, if you answer the question what or whom, you ask these questions, you ask either what or whom. The answer to that question is called object. This man makes beautiful kites. If you answer question what, which part is the answer to this question? This man makes beautiful kites, and naturally this man makes what? The answer is beautiful kites. So, beautiful kites is the object of the sentence. The teacher called the boy, and here the teacher is the subject of the sentence, call is the verb of the sentence, the boy is the object of the sentence, because it which part here answers to question what or whom. The teacher called the boy, the teacher called whom? The answer is the boy. Whom? So, is the answer to this answer to whom, which part here gives answer to whom? This part, that is the boy. The boy gives answer to, because the teacher asked whom. So, the boy is the answer. So, here this is also object. So, we have two kinds of objects actually in English. In English grammar, we have two objects, two kinds of object. One is direct, DO, direct object, and another is IO, indirect object. The part that answers to the question what is called direct object. This man makes kites, and here this man makes what? Kites. This is a direct object, because it answers to question what. The teacher called the boy, it answers here, the boy answers to question whom, it does not answer to question what, therefore, it is called indirect object IO. So, we need two objects for passivization. Any object may be there, it may be active, I mean the direct object may be there or indirect object may be there in the sentence, and we make it passive accordingly. So, when we have both the objects in a sentence, sometimes it so happens, sometimes we have both objects DO and IO in an English sentence. He told the children a story, and here he is the subject of the sentence, told is the object of the sentence, and the children whom, he told whom the story, object, this is called DO. sorry, this is called IO, and here this is DO. So, usually when in make a sentence, IO comes first, indirect object comes first, then comes the direct object. We cannot change it. We cannot say he told a story the children. No, English language does not accept it. So, we need both the things for both the objects for passivization. This is called a ditransitive construction. I told you that grammar is the backbone of a language, and here particularly we deal with the passive form of English sentences. The active forms are passivized in certain ways, and we need certain principles, and we have discussed a lot of things on transformation of sentences from the active form to the passive form. And here I would like to tell you again about the ditransitive constructions of the sentences. Ditransitive means what do you mean by ditransitive? You see, di means two, di means two, dialogue means log means speech, di means two. When two people are required for making speech, we call it a dialogue. Di means two. So, di means two, transitive means object. When we have two objects in a sentence, we call it, the sentence is called ditransitive construction. When two objects are there, one object is direct object, the other is indirect object. When it is a direct object, it answers to question what. When it is indirect object, it answers to question whom. Therefore, if we have two objects in a sentence, we call it a ditransitive construction or ditransitive sentence, because two objects are there at the same time, and such sentences are ditransitive. And when we make a ditransitive sentence, first we write the IO, indirect object, then we write the DO, direct object. We cannot reverse it, we can't change the position of the objects, they have to be in their own place, and therefore, this ditransitive construction is required for passive voice. Now, come to the passive form of the ditransitive constructions. For example, he gave me a kite. And here he is the subject, gave is the verb, me is IO, indirect object, because it answers to question whom, and here it is DO, it answers to question what. When it answers to question what, it is called direct object. When it answers to question whom, it is called indirect object. So, when we make the sentence passive, how to make it? When two objects are there, we can do it in two ways. That is, we are free to choose any object. We can take this one first, or we can take this one first. We can take either of the two. So, when we take the indirect object first, now make it passive. He gave me a kite, and here when it becomes passive, it becomes I was, it is past tense, I was given a kite by him. I was given a kite by him. This is the passive form, one form. The next form is he gave me a kite. Let us take the do first, direct object first. So, a kite was given to me by him. We can make passive of this sentence in two ways. We can choose the direct object first, or we can choose the indirect object first. Any object we can choose and that is not a problem. And the other is subject verb agreement. SV subject verb agreement. That is, you know, a verb must have to agree to the number and person of the subject. The verb must have to agree to the number and person of the object. This is an important rule of grammar, and when the object becomes the subject of the sentence, it becomes the subject of the sentence, because although it was the object of the active sentence, now it is the subject of the passive sentence. When it becomes the subject of the passive sentence, the verb must have to agree to the object which becomes the subject of the sentence. And let us see, for example, this man makes kites. Subject verb object, and here it is singular, this man, and this is a singular, you see, this is singular, but therefore it is makes. Third person singular number, third person singular number, therefore it is the the verb is makes, s is added to it. But here it is kites is plural, it is the object of the sentence, it is plural now. When it becomes the subject of the sentence, it becomes kites, now in the passive form. Now, here it was singular, but here it is plural. Therefore, it needs are, it does not need is. We cannot say kites is, we have to write kites are. Then made by this man. Therefore, this is called subject verb agreement. Subject verb agreement is important, therefore, now come to the tense wise transformation of sentences. So, before going to the tense wise transformation of sentences, so we have to take care of the objects, and let me now let you know the things for better recapitulation of the matter. What are the things required for transformation of sentences? And here, for transformation of sentences, we actually require a subject, we require an object, we require a verb. So, it is the sentence must be in its SVO form. The sentence should be in the SVO form, that is subject, verb, then object form. The verb must be a transitive one, it should carry an object. Why should we say that it should carry an object? It is because it becomes the subject of the passive sentence. If there is no object, where can you get the subject from? So, it is also equally required, object is required. So, subject verb object form is required for passivization. So, the passive sentences need these things, and for object we have two kinds of objects, one is direct object, the other is indirect object. These things are required for passivization. Dear students, we discussed the active and passive forms in English, for which the direct and indirect objects are may be there, or either one object may be there or both objects may be there in the sentence, and such sentences can be made passive. And when we pacify such sentences, we have different approaches to make. For indirect object, we can make the same process, or we can make the same process for indirect object, direct object, direct or indirect, whatever the matter. When we make the sentence passive, we can choose either the direct object or the indirect object. Another important thing is application of tense rule. So, let us see the tense wise transformations of English sentences, tense wise transformations, because tense is very important in English grammar. We have two tenses in English, present and past, and how present tense forms are used for transformation of sentences, and how past tense forms are also used for transformation of sentences. So, there is no difficulty, actually, there is a simple change. If you look at the sentences, any sentence you can pick up and any sentence you can take, and you can see what kind of tense it carries, whether it carries present tense form or it carries past tense form. If it carries present tense, you have to take care of the present tense. If it carries past tense, you have to take care of the past tense forms. So, both the things have to be taken care of at the time of passivation of sentences. And here you see, let us now take present simple and past simple form, and how it is the difference is very little between these two. And if you say the man makes kites, let us now take this sentence, the same sentence which we are taking. Let us see, this is here we have a pair of sentences. This first sentence, this man makes kites, this is the verb, and here this man made kites, this is the verb. This is present simple form of the verb, and here it is the past simple form of the verb. And we here now take two sentences in which we have both present simple and past simple forms of verbs. And when we make it passive, as I told you, the object first, then the kites, this is the subject, this is the verb, this is the object, and now object first. So, kites, when we make it passive, then be present, then is, am, are. So, it is plural, so it is are. Then the third form of the verb, that is make, made, made. Then by agent, by, what is the agent? This is called agent, performer, doer of the action. Subject is you called agent of the sentence. So, by this man. Kites are made by this man. this is the passive form of this active sentence, that is present simple, this is the present simple passive form. And when we make it passive, I mean the past tense, past simple passive, say simple change is there, only a simple change, because the first verb carries tense and the first verb should be changed into past tense. And when you do make it passive, for passive, past tense passive, simply change it okay, very simple. Present tense are. Now only this is changed, because this verb carries tense and this is changed, and it is the, it was are, now it becomes were, past tense. This is the passive form of this past tense sentence. So, this is the simple present or simple past transformation. And when you see, now come to present progressive and present past progressive, the same thing. This man is making, the man is making kites. You see, this is present progressive, this is past progressive, and when we make it passive, let us now take the form is making. The form is object first. So, kites, this is for present tense, kites, then it was there with man because it was singular, third person singular, it is, therefore it was is. Now it is past tense, sorry, third person plural number, therefore it is are. Then we use being, then third form of the verb, then by agent. And when we again the past tense, very simple, simply this is changed, the first verb is changed and it becomes the kites were being made by this man or by the man. Now, it becomes the past tense form. A simple change here can make the difference. This is the only difference that we find. Now, come to present perfect form and past perfect form. Present and past, you simply change it here, has becomes a had, everything remains the same, because it is I mean non finite verb, no change, only the change takes place here, and it is present perfect and this is past perfect. And when we make such a sentence as passive, how it is passivized? When it is present progressive, it is has, therefore, when we make it passive, object first. So, let us write kites, object kites, then the form is have, for present tense it is have or has. So, kites is plural, so it needs have. Then we write a been, kites have been made by the man, the present perfect form. And now come to the past perfect form. When the past perfect form is passivized, only a change is here, had. The man had made kites, kites had been made by this man, by the man, very simple. So, present tense or past tense, whatever it is, we need only a simple change can make the difference, present or past. So, there is no problem as such. Come to negative sentences. We also need negative sentences. Sorry. He does not make kites. He does not make kites. When we make this sentence into passive form, since it is a negative sentence, there is not here, and when it is a negative sentence, when we make it a passive, we use not after the first verb. We use not after the first verb, and when it becomes passive, he and now object first kites. Are kites are not kites are not made by this man, because only not is added. When it is a positive affirmative sentence, kites are made by him by him, but when it is a negative, only not is added after that. Kites are not made by him, and when it is a past tense, didn't, he didn't make kites. When we make it passive, simply it is where, then not. Kites were not made by him, only not is added, and we should make transformation of passive sentences. We have to choose the sentences, I mean whether they are affirmative sentences or negative sentences. So, for affirmative or negative, we need these things for transformation of sentences. And when you come to perfect progressive, now we have done three forms: present simple, past simple, present progressive, past progressive, present perfect, past perfect. Now, come to perfect progressive. Another form is perfect progressive. What is about it? How to make how to make it passive? When we make, how to make perfect progressive form sentences, how to make such sentences passive? Can we say? The answer is no change. No change. Perfect progressive forms in present tense or in past tense, there is no change. So, we only transform three forms into passive forms. Present simple can be made passive, present progressive can be made passive, present perfect can be made passive, but present perfect progressive cannot be made passive, because and past tense is also done in the same way. Past tense is also done in the same way, present tense and past tense. Perfect progressive, in their perfect progressive form have no passive forms. Therefore, when we go to perfect progressive, we can't think of any change. We can only change the simple, progressive and perfect of both the tenses into their passive forms. So, negative forms are also very important, and when we transform the negative sentences into their passive forms, these are also important, and the word not is added to the first verb in the sentence, both in present tense and past tense, and it becomes the passive form. Thank you very much.